is never something that makes you happy. It's never something you're not happy about a problem. I mean, maybe you're like, I'm so glad I found this problem because now I can solve it. but but
But you're not happy about the problem.
but that problem needs to be, it needs to make you angry enough so that you have enough passion that'll drive you for a long time to figure out how to solve it and to help others solve it.
Welcome to The Ugly Phase, the podcast for entrepreneurs who know that growth is never pretty. Every business hits the ugly phase, and barely anyone knows how to get out of it in one piece. Worse, no one tells you how to avoid showing your own ugly face when the pressure is on. Here, we break down real stories from founders who've been there, so you can push through and come out stronger. Every entrepreneur faces an ugly phase, but not everyone makes it through. This show makes sure that you do. Today, I have a guest that calls himself a culture branding guy, but I call him a guy that's seen it all almost all. Please welcome Nader, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Olia. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, like you said, my name is Nader Safinya. I'm the founder and principal of Blackribbit, a culture branding agency. What that means is that we help companies become people-first organizations who can very clearly answer the questions why anyone would want to buy from them and why anyone would want to work for them. We do this in a unique way where we define the customer brand and their employer brand at the same time. So we're coming at this through the lens of communication strategy and branding to ensure that there's a very cohesive sort of bridge between a company's culture and the way that they present themselves in the market. At the moment, the market is not often seeing what the market is getting. So there's a gap between a company's culture and its marketing. And yeah, I myself grew up internationally. I was born in the US. I moved through France, Indonesia, the UAE, and then I went to school in California, um, did a master's in Munich, lived in New York for a stint, and then ended up in Houston here today. And you're here on a rare day with me. It's actually snowing.
I was gonna say, yeah. But this is why you're the guy that's seen it all, almost all, because you've been places, right?
Yeah,
You're mobile and
yeah,
global.
yeah. And now I'm in a snowstorm in Houston.
By the way, the date of this recording is January 21st, the day after the inauguration. So maybe this is why it's snowing. Because the
Oh,
world has seen things.
yeah. I feel like a lot of us are thinking of an expression that I don't want to say.
I'm just happy to be out of DC at this point because I've spent a fair amount of time in the US Capitol. And right now I'm happy not to be there because I can only imagine the shit show that's
Yeah,
going on over there right now.
yeah. I imagine. Um, yeah, again,
It's almost the same level of shit show when it comes to dissonance between the marketing messaging and the company culture, right? Because
yeah,
I think we've all seen it.
yeah, absolutely. I just, it's been, that's the whole thing. Like the messaging of like what was once or supposedly still is the values of this nation is just very mixed up. It's very mixed up in terms of, what people, what the public believes, what the public believes to be true, the values they hold dear, the values within this country, I
Right.
think societally have become very mixed up. At the end of the day, and this all feeds into what we all do and experience, even in the workplace. The U.S. is notorious for its individualistic mindset. I mean, it is an individualistic society. It's a sort of, at least the dominant aspect is this kind of like every man for himself kind of a mentality. And but there's actually a very large, some might say even half the population that still believes deeply in family values and collective upbringing and collective success and so on. But this isn't necessarily evident in neither in the way that we treat each other or in the workplace. And like most things and how culture is cultivated, it starts at the top. It's a leadership thing. So if we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, who's running this country, the question becomes who's actually running this country. Um, and that's not a trivial answer. Some might say the president, some might say corporations, some might say some people dressed in black. I mean, I don't know. And you know, we we as a society are kind of controlled by the media and technology anyway. So, you turn on any internet channel for the most part and look at what pop culture is doing. That's going to tell you how a society is acting for the most part. And here it's interesting. Like if you look at government office in this country, um, the median age is like above 50 of
Right.
the people in office. And young people are certainly not getting into government roles. If they are, it's very few and far
Very
between,
rare. Hmm.
and I mean, I actually interact with young people because I work with interns and students and so on. And, you know, e- almost everybody, like 80% of the people that I speak to anyway, granted it is my field, but if you do a little bit of research, um, they're usually going into business development or business or consulting. This is my favorite umbrella term. Everyone's going into consulting and they don't even know what consulting is. I'm like, what are you consulting on? Consulting is about a specialty. So I don't know what you mean when you say consulting. Um, but it's interesting, and it has a trickle down effect. It has a trickle down impact on how people engage at work, how they interact with each other. After COVID, we experienced what I called the selfish care movement. It was an exacerbation of the self care movement. The self care movement was one of the greatest things that came out of COVID. It highlighted the necessity and the importance of taking care of oneself in order to take care of others. Um, it's the oxygen mask analogy. Put your mask on
I was just
before.
gonna say that. That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
Put your
if
mask on first. Yeah. Mhm.
exactly, because if you're dead, you can't help anyone anyway. So,
Right.
and the Vatican got behind it. This is a key point that a lot of people don't remember is that the Pope actually started endorsing self-care in the mental capacity, taking care of your mental health, because as you might know, like mental health care is still and was considered to be highly taboo until recently. Like seeking psychological care outside of the US has and continues to be taboo. Like you're basically seen as crazy if you're seeing a therapist, and unstable, and untrustworthy and so on. And COVID sh- COVID really emphasized that no, that's not the case. It can be a strain on the mind because of excruciating or exhausting physical stimulus, like thousands of people dying around you, as Italy witnessed during COVID. But then in the U.S., we do something we typically do, and we pushed it off a cliff after that
Yeah,
first
exactly.
year, and it
Hmm.
became all about me, 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 me. And then they,
But it's the same with seeing a therapist. I feel like it's become more like if you don't see a therapist, what like what's wrong with you? And like what the fuck?
yeah,
It's all has always has to go to extremes. Always.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And now, like, it's gone so far to the other side that it's almost trendy to, lean into my anxiety and my depression and this and this and that, to where
Yeah.
no one, like, it's become, communication has become challenging to the point where, okay, so how do we take care of each other and be mindful of each other's, sensitivities, sensibilities, and personal problems without it becoming a dominant factor in the conversation. Because at the end of the day, it is a two-way street. Like if I have to be mindful of you, then you know what? You need to be mindful of me. Like I also
Exactly.
have like
Exactly.
needs and wants and so on. So it does come down to communication. So
You
it's
know, it's
it's
this long running joke about vegans. That's like the first thing they say is like, hi, I'm Ollie, I'm vegan. It's like the first thing that would come up with them. But I feel like, so what I've heard, especially from younger generation at this point, is they would be like, hi, I'm Alex, I have ADHD. And I'm like, okay, like why should I know this?
yeah,
Like it
yeah,
has become an excuse, as in like, oh, I'm completely dysfunctional and this is my excuse, and like I have to deal with it as a manager. Like, no, that's your problem. I also have ADHD. I don't advertise it. I take care of it. Like it's
yeah,
not part of my identity. I'm not proud of it. I think it's a simply like at this point, a societal thing. Like I think everybody has ADHD to a certain extent because of the technology, because of the gadgets, because of everything else. It's like
mhm,
you cannot make it part of your identity, let alone make it an excuse for being like a low functioning
yeah,
contributor.
yeah, absolutely. And um, that's interesting the way you said that, to an excuse to be a low functioning contributor, because I think what's important, as this is where it gets tricky, because you want, as a leader, you want to give a shit. You want to care. You want to make sure that, your people are taken care of so that they feel comfortable being there and want to be there, so that they don't feel shunned and alienated, and, like that their problem is actually, that their challenges are actually a problem, and that they are a
Right,
crutch, and
right,
so on. But at the same time, it goes both ways. At the end of the day, there's a certain amount of responsibility that falls on leadership, but there's also a tremendous amount of responsibility that falls on the self. Like you need, from both sides, like
precisely.
you need to be able to take care of yourself, and you need to be able to know what your own barriers and boundaries are in order to set proper expectations so that you can contribute to the bigger picture. If you're going to be part of a collective, at the end of the day, you have responsibilities to that collective. I don't care how you slice it. Like you're not one person on this ship, and not everybody can't cater to you all the time, because we have our own responsibilities. We have other things we have to take care of, and so on. Not to mention we have our families and our friends and so on. We have like our
Exactly,
personal
exactly,
lives. And
exactly.
I can't be like made responsible for you all the time. I can create the space and the opportunities and the outlets and so on for you to get the support that you need when you need it, if you need that kind of support, because you're super productive and you're a good contributor and you're a good fit in the organization and so on. But there's a limit to everything. And I actually had this issue when I brought in somebody a few years ago. It was after COVID. It was like 2021 or 22, I can't
Mhm.
remember. And I brought somebody in.
That seems like such a long time ago. I'm
I
like,
know,
holy
right?
shit.
And it was only like 2 years ago. It's
Exactly.
just so much has happened. It's just insane. Um, but it was what you said earlier resonated with me, because one of the first things he said to me was that he has these sort of emotional issues and issues with anxiety and so on, and he's actually on medication and this and that. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I said, look, I'm going to be very blunt. Uh, I have no problem with that personally. I just need to make sure that you'll show up, that you'll be
Right.
reliable. Like
Exactly. Hmm.
that's fine. If you need the help, you need to talk to me. Like you can't be non-communicative. If you're not getting what you need and it's affecting your deliverables because I'm counting on you and clients are counting on you and so on, then that needs to be a conversation. You can't come to me and say okay when we have a conversation and then not deliver after the fact. I'm not a micromanager. I hate micromanaging, and I don't want to micromanage. And that's exactly what happened. He kept not delivering. And I ended up I ended up I ended up doing all the work myself, because we were a very small team at that point. And I did it over Christmas break. I did it over 10 days over Christmas break. I put together a 100-page report. that we were supposed to split, and that didn't happen. I started it from scratch, because he just didn't deliver. And it was a lot of conversations about, why is this not happening? Why is this not happening? And what do you need from me? All the supportive, um, dialogue and actual follow through that I was able to implement, but I couldn't get anything out of it because it wasn't a two-way street. And I can't force anyone to do
Oh,
anything.
precisely. You just hit the nail on the head about the two-way street. I mean, this is always something that I emphasize to the people on my team, and I do have a very negative example as well. When a lady with a very mixed cultural background joined, it was about 2 years ago. So she was born in India, but she was at the time living in Finland. So imagine like two cultures colliding already. Like that's a very, very for me like completely separate worlds. And then so her requirement was, well, so in Finland we only work whatever that was 7 hours a day, and I also want to spend time with my kid in the afternoon, so I'll just get off at 3, which was 2 p.m. my time.
Right.
And it was set as like, this is what I want and need, like no, like I'm not accepting no for an answer. I was like, okay, I guess as long as you get your stuff done, that's totally fine. But stuff was not getting done. And I'm like, now there is a conflict because it has to go your way all the time, but there is a way for the company, not even all for the company. And needless to say, it didn't end well because she just kept saying, well, you're not respecting my time. I'm like, oh, I'm respecting all of your time and all of your wishes, but you're not respecting your deliverables. You're clocking off when your work is not done, when we have agreed that you would finish it today. And she was not like, that was a person with like a decade of experience. So at this point you expect some sort of
Yeah.
ethics, right? Work ethics. And so that didn't go well. And what I say to my team right now, I'm like, look guys, sometimes you see me online at like 9 p.m. or something like this. Doesn't mean that you need to do the same thing. You also don't know why I'm online at 9 p.m. Well, maybe I took off at 3 p.m. to go spend time with my kids, and I'm just simply making up for the time that I lost during the day. So I'm like, I trust you to manage your time and to be a decent contributor so that your work gets done. And I don't care where you are, how
Yeah.
you do it, when you do it, as long as you hit the deadline and the deliverable is exactly what we have discussed. And I think this is a fair way to do it. And that's how I treat my relationship the other way around, as in with my boss. Same thing. I know he trusts me that I would get my work done. And in any shape or form. Maybe I'm in the south of France today or I don't know in Indonesia tomorrow. Not saying this
Yeah.
is the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's just, I think it's a question of trust. This is what it comes down to at the end of the day. One person trusting the other and the other person just being a decent person
Yeah.
and doing what they say they would do.
Yeah. Agreed. And I mean, everything you just said resonated with me deeply, because I have the same work ethic, and it's rooted in offering ownership to my team, to my people.
Precisely.
Like, I don't want to micromanage you. And by the way, you don't want me to micromanage you, because if I micromanage you, I'm going to be up your ass. Like, I'm going to be so annoying. I'm going to
Like
be
I'll do
so annoying.
colonoscopy.
Yeah. Like, so annoying. I'm just going to be riding you the whole time. And you don't want that. Do you really want someone to just be breathing down your neck the whole time? I don't think so. I don't think anybody enjoys that. And what I do know from experience is that if you offer someone enough ownership and the support or guidance or any sort of help when they need it, um, and if they possess a quality of reliability, then it can work. It can work
Right.
really well, actually. And moreover, they'll start taking ownership and pushing the creative boundaries. They'll start coming up with ideas because now they have this freedom to kind of explore and so on. And they'll demonstrate their own leadership capacities and so on if that's a direction that they want to take. And that's something that can happen organically. In my interviews, when I do interviews now for about a year and a half, 2 years now, I don't even talk about technicals until later. I barely look at the resume. The first thing I want to know is what they value. What is a non-negotiable in a relationship with them? And I say that I'm like, what do you care about most in a relationship? I don't care if it's
Uh-huh.
with, your parents, with a lover, with your work, with your boyfriend, like whatever. It doesn't matter. What do you value most? Like, what is the non-negotiable? What will break that trust, that relationship? And people have different answers. Some people say honesty. Some people say open communication. Other people say like emotional support. And, some people will talk about, uh, answering the phone whenever I call or whatever. Some people have, their own, their own specifics and so on. All I'm looking
Right.
for is something around the words, around the theme of reliability and accountability, you know, and then because that's the first thing we value at Blackribbit. It's reliability above all else. We have three foundational pillars: reliability, compassion, and deliberate action. And the first is reliability, always, because and I've been asked this where people go, "What do you mean by reliability?" And I go, "You do what you say you're gonna
You
do."
would do, yeah.
And then they go, "Okay." And I've noticed a good way to really understand if someone's being genuine in their responses is by breaking. It's called a pattern break in communications, where you'll like ask questions that are positively driven, so people will go, yeah, 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 like, does that make sense? Do you understand? Do you agree? Blah blah. Do you understand? Blah blah blah, blah, blah. And they go, yeah, yeah, get it, yeah. And then you're like, are you even listening to what I'm saying? And then you go, do you disagree? And they go, wait. And then they go, did you even hear what I just said? And they'll go, yeah, yeah, no, I don't disagree. I'm like, okay, can you repeat what I said? And that starts training you to see if they're actually being genuine in their responses, or do they just want to get through the interview. And
Right.
then I'll ask about stories and technicals and so on. And the whole point of this is, speaking to what you were saying earlier, is to try to build that rapport and that trust from the first point of contact.
Right.
Um, because if it's not working in that conversation, then it's not going to work. It's if we're already having problems, then this isn't going to work out. Doesn't mean you don't fit anywhere else. It just means here is probably going to be contentious.
Ooh, this really, really, really resonates with the conversation that I just had with the team today about goals. Because I'm like, hey guys, if you are all in some corporate old style environment, you not hitting your goals would probably be okay-ish. But like in our case, it's ride or die, because we are at a startup that is trying to scale. And if we cannot scale, then we don't get any funding and then we all go home.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've tried saying it so many times at this point, and I think there are, so to bring it back to like types of people, I think there are only certain types of people who make it and who are well fit or best fit for startups, because you have to have this drive and like the desire to go a little bit above and beyond
Yeah.
versus just like going on with the flow. I'm like, if you want to go on with the flow, go work for a big company.
Yeah.
You'll sit at your desk, be at a very slow pace, and just like nothing is ever going to change around you.
And you'll get
And it's
paid.
okay. Exactly. And I'm like, and it's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
freaking hate in today's culture? That people assign all these labels and tags to them because they think that this is how it needs to work. As in like, oh, I am a millennial or whatever, Gen Z, so I should definitely go work for a startup. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Do you even like being stressed? Like, are you a high functioning individual in a high stress environment? If not, forget about it. Because this thing is only going to break you. You'll get an imposter syndrome afterwards, because you'll be like, oh, well, I failed that. Maybe I'll fail everything else. I'm like, well, you only failed it because you were not cut out for it in the first
And
place.
that's okay. That's like the most
Exactly,
important thing, is
exactly.
that that's okay. It's not it's like inherently okay. Not everyone is built for everything. This is another big problem that like I'm trying to solve is, you have these insanely talented people looking for work who can't find jobs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like insanely talented people, and not lazy. because often talent and laziness coincide. Um, but I'm talking about really talented, really skilled, hardworking people who
Hardworking.
want to
Hmm.
work, who can't find jobs. And this is another sort of thing in corporate culture and company culture where leadership tends to not want to bring in feather rufflers, people who are going to come in and mix shit up because they want things done a certain way. They don't want like free thinkers. They want people to basically come in and maybe manage a team, but in the way that, the executives want and so on, in the way that the leadership wants, so that they follow their vision. And this is standard with even big companies like Google and Amazon and so on. And so you have, to your point, you have these which again, there's nothing inherently wrong with this. You have like project managers working 35 hours a week, making like $300,000 a year. And you're like, okay, okay. And you'll often find that these the same individuals I've worked with some people in these positions, and I'm always and I use that word deliberately. I'm always
Yeah.
unpleasantly surprised. I'm upset by the leadership in the room that I'm working with. And I'm talking like Google level and things like that, where there's a very little there's like proactivity is low, accountability is low. There's a lot of this is coming from the top. We're just here to get it done, that kind of stuff. And it's not an inspiring atmosphere. It's not an motivating environment. And then the same kind of leaders are going, why are there no good people out there? And
Right.
and I'm like, because you're creating an
Where could it be
environment.
coming from?
Yeah, exactly. You're creating an environment that one doesn't fit the kind of talented people that you think you want, and two, they you're not hiring them. You're not giving them a chance anyway. Because you're coming from a sort of place where you want things done a certain way. And while, an individual with an entrepreneurial mindset would want to work for a company, because they want stability and security and the ability to scale without freaking out every 2 minutes. Um, but, the space is just not made for them. So to your point, not everyone is designed for every environment. And that is also rooted in the communication strategy and the branding. Like, how do you position a company to make sure that the right people are seeing your company, and then the right people are also understanding how it's going to impact their lives? So it's, what one thing that I keep bringing up these days, I guarantee, if you think about this real hard, when is the last time you saw a job description that actually talked about how it's going to impact your quality of life?
None, probably.
Yeah,
No, for sure.
I
Probably
know.
none.
It's
I mean, they
interesting.
all list it at the end. It's like, "We give you," but it's like all standard, and it feels like they just slapped it on it just because they had to, you
Totally.
know?
And we're so trained to not even see that we don't even think about it. We're
Exactly.
going, oh my God, this job sounds awesome. Oh, I'm going to be working for who? Oh, I'm delivering for what? This sounds so cool. This is like a project I really want to work on. And you like forget that it's going to be your life for the next like 5 years. And then there's no indication of where you'll be in 5 years from the lens through the lens of the company, like the kind of training they might have available for you, the kind of career ladder they might have available, how this will impact your family, how it might impact, your personal life and so on. So there's no, why would I want to work here? I can see why this job is interesting, but I don't know why the company is interesting, and so as an applicant, you might go read about some things online. You might go on Glassdoor, you might go on their company website or whatever, and there's some, nuanced language that makes you excited because you're like, oh yeah, they're so innovative and they're so interesting and they're forward thinking, or they say they're people centric and all this, and then you send in a job application and you don't get a response for 6 months. And then 6 months later, you actually get a response when you've forgotten about the whole thing altogether. And they're like, thanks for your interest, but we moved on. You're like, dude, it's been half a
Exactly.
year. I don't even know who you are. I sent this to like 400 other companies. I don't even know who this is.
And you probably got it from, what is it called, the talent management system, or what is it called, the applicant management system,
Yeah.
just an automated thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's like some bot. It's not even a human. It's just
Exactly, exactly.
some robot that took 6 months to get back to you. You're like, and I'm using that number deliberately as well. That's not as an exaggeration. I've experienced that. Or I'm literally like, what? Is this junk mail? Did I send something in? I don't understand.
Right, right. Oh, no, I totally agree. And I think so. I've definitely, when I was back on the market, I've definitely experienced like knowing that nobody, like not a single human being looked at my resume. Like I would know that I was getting like filtered out by whatever system they had in place.
Yeah,
And it's a recent conversation I had with the recruiter, because I was telling them, they're like, oh, why does it only take you like 10 seconds of looking at the resume to tell me if this person's good or not? I'm like, because it's like, I literally have this like selective looking or whatever. And it also the way that the person phrases what they've done before, I can tell whether they're bullshitting or not.
yeah,
Like right off the bat, I can just scan somebody's LinkedIn profile and be like, yes and no, yes and no, yes and no. Same with the conversation. I think like the first 10 minutes, I don't even ask a lot of questions. I just let them talk. Just the way they present themselves already matters a lot to me. And
hmm,
then I think my approach is very similar to yours. I just kind of, I'm looking for them to answer my question of whether, are you going to let me down or not? Like if I give you my trust, are you going to let me down? And if I can feel that the person is just trying to, for me to like him or them rather, for me it's an immediate no. Like if the person is just blabbering, blah blah, not really answering my question, that's a no. And it's not big. It might be because they're a bad communicator, but 95% of the time, it's just somebody who is being dishonest, and I cannot
sure.
tolerate that.
Yeah, it also and that but the reason you're able to go through these so quickly is because you know what you're looking for. So,
Exactly.
and that's important. You're not just looking around, and it's dangerous when you're just looking around because then you're like, what are you
Right.
looking for? I mean, you should be able to go through resumes like that as a human because you're looking for very specific, maybe
Exactly.
skills, communication skills, maybe certain words, like things that just pop out at you. And then you'll do this two pile thing. You're like, okay, these are viable. No, 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 maybe, no, 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 maybe. Oh, this one's a good one, and you do that. And the reason you have that is because, again, there's a very clear cut sort of persona or profile that you're trying to fill in your mind. And that's good, because then your interviews become more efficient, your conversations become more efficient. And sometimes, if someone's not necessarily good at communicating, that, depending on the role, doesn't matter. They just need to be able to tell you what you need and what's not working for them. I mean, tell you what they need and what's not working for them. Because if they're like in a production role or some technical role where, they're just really good at doing that one thing, we know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those people, like engineers or animators or like videographers, they do like one thing and they're just insane
Right.
at it. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
just so good at it, but they suck at having conversations, and that's okay. Like, we don't need you to have conversations. In fact, I never want you to go to a meeting. I just want you to do that, and then this guy will go to the meeting. And and that's fine. And it's important to like know those differences in characteristics and behavior, um, to be able to create the team that you need to get the job done, to get the thing done, to reach your vision. And and again, this all goes back to your branding, to your brand strategy. Like, what is it that you're looking for? Why would anyone want to work here? And when you're developing an employer brand, it's the same as developing a customer brand in the sense that you're segmenting your audience because you have different kinds of people working for the organization for different departments with different personalities, with different, lifestyles and so on. And the same message is not going to resonate with every single one of these people. Um, and you have to create the space to accommodate that diverse sort of workforce and the variety of kind of people that you're trying to bring in with all that I just mentioned, whether it's language or cultural backgrounds or whatever, depending on your own work culture and the kind of place you're trying to create, um, then that requires some forethought so that you can go through a resume like you do and just be like, no, 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 yeah, no, 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 yeah,
Right.
right? And I always describe this. I think you and I talked about this last time, where I say if marketing is your invitation and um, ge- uh, if your invitation is your marketing and your guests are your customers, then your brand is your party. So, all these
Oh, I
three
love that.
things have to work together so that you
Hmm.
have an awesome party. Because if you have an awesome party and no invitation, well, then no one's going to show up. If you have an awesome party and a shitty guest list and a great marketing and great invitation, then no one's going to show up. Or if you have great marketing and a great guest list and a shitty party, then everybody shows up and is like, what is this place? This
Right.
place sucks. So you have to like not everybody's going to come to the same party. So you're going to have a group of people show up and they're going to be like, yeah, this is amazing. And then another people just kind of sitting there like, this is not my vibe at all. So it's the same way that when you create an environment for your organization, that's creating your brand and how people feel about this place. And it'll start answering the questions like, why would anyone want to work here? Why would anyone want to buy from here? Um, and then you can have these conversations with interviews and setting up spaces and training and protocols and programs and opportunities and so on much more simply because you have a reason to build into. Anytime anyone asks you why you do something, from the way that you hire people to onboarding clients down to how you write your legal contracts and sign your emails, the only thing you should ever have to say is because we value X, Y, and Z, and we want people to experience A, B, and C. That's all you should ever have to say. And and the rest is operational. The rest is financial and systematic. But the reason becomes super simple, which creates simplicity in your decision making. Because then you can be like, does this qualify? Will people experience A, B, and C if we do this? No. Okay, then move on.
I think this is also really good guiding principle for individuals because I think a lot of people struggle with answering, oh, what should I do next? Or why am I doing this? Or
Yeah.
should I continue doing this? I mean, me included, I've been on like a 3 week break, including going to Sri Lanka with my family, etc. And when I come back, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Because once you take yourself out of the rat race, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, where are the rats? How do I follow them? And I had to have this conversation with myself as in what do I actually value? Like let me remind myself of what is it that I like, that I value, etc. To remind myself what I should be doing. And I slightly changed the direction, but I think that was actually instrumental. And when I have this conversation with my friends, with the people I mentor, I'm like, let's remind you or yourselves what is it that you actually value. But you know what, I think a lot of people struggle with answering that question on the personal value level. Happens very often when I ask that question, people will be like, it would take them some time, and then like little by little they would actually uncover it. So it's somewhere inside of them, but they're not like consciously aware of it.
I agree. And yeah, like you said, it's very normal, and it's because I think the word value trips people up as well.
Hmm.
I think they're
Hmm.
looking for like a specific. They think you're looking for a specific answer. Which is why, for example, when I ask
I think it
people,
sounds big also. It's
yeah,
like, oh, I should have my, I don't know, values journal for that.
yeah, 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 exactly. That's actually why I ask it in I'm like, what is the most important thing to you in a relationship? Like when I talk about that, that's a value. That's something you value. And I say, on the other hand, I talk about anger. When people talk about like, I don't know why, what's my why? Why do I need to find my why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Which is a great question to ask, but it's not a simple answer
Right.
to get to. But there is a quick way of doing it. I mean, if you're kind of uncertain about how to reach that response, even for yourself, a quick way of doing it is think about like what makes you really angry. Like what about, life? What about society? What about, culture? What in your day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go back to sleep, are there points of contention where you're just like, oh my God, this is so stupid, or this doesn't work? Why doesn't this work? This should be like this. The moment you go, this should be like this, or it shouldn't be like that, you're starting to tap into something that you want to change. Like
I
what do
like
you
that
want to
angle.
change about the world? And then you start kind of either narrowing it down or widening it. Like how can this be applied across the board? And then you start getting into like, what is it about the big picture that's bothersome to me, that upsets me? Once you start figuring that out, that anger drives the passion to change something. And so when you think about it from that lens, people go like, why does this piss you off so much? And then you tell them why, and you're like, this is why. And now you're getting somewhere. You're like, this is why I do what I do, because this thing sucks and there's a much better way of doing it. And I think I have the solution. And there's your why. That's what it is.
I like that approach a lot because it makes it a lot simpler than answering this like high level vague question, what's your value or
Uh-huh.
what are your values? Because I mean, I originally struggled with answering that too. I'll be like, okay. And I was like, is that something that I like? Is it something that I hold dear? But I
Yeah.
like the opposite approach. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was gonna ask you a question that I realized was not well phrased. I was gonna ask you, so how do companies attract people with the entrepreneurial mindset? But now I'm like, scratch that. How do companies create an environment for people with the entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it goes back to ownership. I think it's
Okay.
one first of all, the organization itself has to create room for experimentation and failure. Because if, the entrepreneurial mindset by definition is experimental. Like they come in, they have ideas. They're idea people. And
Mm-hmm.
ideas don't always work. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. Um, but there are no bad ideas in the sense that there are ideas that you cannot have. There are just ideas that might not work, and
Okay.
or they might work, but they'll take forever and they're insanely expensive or whatever. So, you have to have room to play. This is a very design oriented, people first mindset where you give people uh again the room to play, and that could be anything as simple as, I think, at least there was a time when Google did this. I don't know if they still do it. There was where every employee had 1 day a week to kind of explore ideas.
Okay. I've heard about
Um,
that. Yeah. But like a
and
while ago.
it was a while ago. I don't know if they still do that. That was literally like 20 years ago. I don't know if they still
Mm-hmm.
do that. So
Probably not.
I honestly have no idea, but I thought that was so cool. And I think uh for example, I'll use Blackribbit as an example. I bring in I encourage leadership and entrepreneurial mindsets from the intern level, at the level of interns. And I want, when interns come to work at Blackribbit, we give them so much space to the point where they're leading projects. Like they've never ever led a project before, and now they're leading a project, or they're leading an entire let's call it like just business development. Like they're leading it. And we're there for support. We're there to make sure that, if they fall, we pick them up. If something breaks, that we can fix it. We give them the knowledge and the confidence that if they fall down, it's okay. We won't, there are certain projects that, we won't put them on. We won't be like, you're going to go pitch to the client. No, not right now, not this time, you know, or we'll have them sit in or something like that. There are levels of responsibility that can be given to different levels of people. So if you have senior level entrepreneurial people coming into an office, um, again, like I said before, there has to be a reason you're bringing them in there, right? Like that means you
Right.
want someone to come and change
Hmm.
something up. That means you want someone to come and shift mindsets and actually change gears. Like the problem you're trying to solve is we need something different. We need to take a risk. We need to, actually put something out in the market that's never been done before, or that it's, super contradictory to what people are thinking. So it's going to bring the attention that we need because we value X, Y, and Z, and we want people to experience A, B, and C. And so it's really that. It's not the simple answer is create a space of ownership and the ability to fail. Um, and then that make sure that you have a support system in place. The longer answer is, you have to know as an organization and as a leader that you need that kind of a mindset
Okay.
in the workplace. Otherwise, it's contentious. You know this as well as I do. You're going to have entrepreneurial mindset people and they're feeling like they're in a box and they can't get out. And they're constantly being told what to do and pushed around and so on. And they will not thrive there. And in fact, it'll just create more problems.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question on that because I think it's what's on everyone's mind when it comes, because you brought up very important concept of idea experimentation. How do you draw a line between the like very formal idea experimentation process versus somebody being all over the place and just like constantly trying something new and like off to the next thing, off to the next thing, but it's not actually bringing a lot of results?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. That's the that's the difference between tactics and strategy, right? So I again it comes down to what is it that we're trying to solve? What is the point of the experimentation? And how much does it fit into our narrative as a brand? Um, so you could, for example, there is a place where your brand strategy, your brand narrative values experimentation. One of your values might be experimentation because you want people to experience, let's say, you know, uh, like innovative growth or, just rapid growth. And rapid growth can come from um, just kind of sporadic experimentation. There's a difference between, so you know what design thinking is. Have you heard of design thinking? Yeah. So people want to understand what design thinking is in the simplest terms. So in the simplest terms, it's exploiting the past to explore the future. And uh there's three schools of thinking. The two classic ones are strategic and analytical thinking, and the other one is innovative thinking. Innovative thinking and strategic thinking clash constantly because innovative thinking is very expensive and it's full of experimentation, but it's about rapid growth, high risk, high reward. And that's what startups are all about. They're doing massive experimentation. They're getting funding specifically to experiment and for R&D and to run tests and to figure out how this thing works because they're creating something that's never been created before. Or at least it's like a major improvement on something that already exists. Strategic thinking is very safe. It's very safe. It's based on data. You base all your decisions on what's already happened. So you look at patterns. This is very common. This is common in finance. This is common in engineering and so on. And so it's very low risk and very slow. So these two schools of thought don't work well together. So there's a
Right.
marriage of the two, which is called design thinking, where design thinking marries the best parts of both. So it brings in data and exploits that data, past examples, case studies, observational studies. There's all kinds of like scientific methodologies that go into design thinking. And then the innovative part comes from the sprint method of design thinking, where you're doing quick experimental turnarounds, prototypes, test, 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 and you're doing it in short periods of time. So it reduces the cost and increases yeah, what do you call it? Increases progress, while also reducing risk and speeding up the process. So that's that's where you can kind of, if you implement and instill design thinking methodologies into your practice, then you can create the room for people to experiment within the confines of a parameter. There's another thing I like to say, which is you can't, in order to think outside the box, you have to create the box. You can't think outside of it if it doesn't
I like that.
exist. So what that means is you have to create the parameters in order to break them. Otherwise people do just go crazy. You're like, well, if someone's
Right.
creative and you're
Mhm.
like, just do whatever you want. You're like, well, that's literally the universe. I can do whatever I want. Do you have all the money in the world? I mean, I can certainly start, but that won't go anywhere. So you need to create parameters, and when you create parameters, now you create structure. But it doesn't mean that these people can't be as creative as they want. It means they can be as creative as they want within these parameters, which means they can break them, but it adds some structure and organization and cost management and so on, and time management, so that you can still let people have their fun and really go nuts creatively, but have a direction.
I like that. I think that that just really, really sets the scene for what is the true idea experimentation is when you do have it's like a lab experiment, right?
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
certain components and you have the freaking lab, and that's how you can run an actual experiment versus just doing random
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think, that's rooted in the vision again. Like we have a vision. That's why strategy and tactics are need to work together, because if you create a strategy, then you can throw out all the tactics that you want so long as they fit that strategy. And now you're being focused with your tactics in order to achieve the strategy vision. But if you're just going
Right.
straight to tactics, which is what many marketers do, marketers and strategists have these conversations, because marketers will be like, we could do this, we could do that, we should do this, we should do that. And strategist is like, yeah, we could do all that stuff, but why do you want to do all that stuff? And
Right.
they usually don't have an answer. They'll be like, because it's fast, because it's cheap, because because they're doing it, or because our CFO told us to do it, or whatever. But it's like that's when you start, the saying throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. That's when you start doing that. And it's like, no, now there's no direction, there's no reasoning, there's no parameter. The strategy creates your parameter, and then you can do whatever you want in there as long as it answers again, because we value X, Y, and Z and we want people to experience A, B, and C.
That makes so much sense. I have last question in conjunction to that, because this is something that popped up, I think, end of last week. A friend of mine who is a CMO at this quite fast growing startup. He's been with the company almost from the very beginning, and they pivoted. I call it 1.5 times. So they made one major pivot and then another smaller one. And basically, he called me. He's like, I don't know what to do because my CEO is basically telling me we need to like layer on this additional product that has nothing to do with the original product, simply because our current investors do not believe in the original product. So they want us to go this direction, just basically become like a milking cow. And I'm
Right.
like, and he's like, and I'm feeling like a prostitute because I feel like I'm just, giving myself away to the highest bidder. So like somebody, with the biggest stack of cash. He's like, what do I do? I was like, ooh, that's a tough one. I honestly do not know what I would have done in that situation, because I'm like big on vision. If I do not align with the vision anymore, I just cannot see myself in
Yep.
the company anymore. Like, what would be your take on that? Because I have to be honest, I think I wasn't much help to him, and just basically said, look, man, if you do not subscribe to that anymore, I think it's better to look for something else because you'll eventually hate it even more. So he's like, I just really want to convince him that we shouldn't be doing that, that we need to find better investors. Maybe we don't have the right investors. I'm like, yeah, but that's eventually his decision. You can only like advise
Yeah.
him, give him your perspective, but you cannot like if that man or woman, I can't remember who the CEO is, just wants to raise more money to continue the business, I mean, the man's got to do what he's got to do, right?
Yeah. How long has your friend been there?
Oh, at least 3 years.
Um, and he's responsible for what?
For everything on the planet Earth. CMO, and I think he started out as like head of marketing, and now he's
Okay.
CMO with them. Probably I don't know how many people under him, but like a handful of people. So he's grown the whole thing. So I think he feels like super attached to it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I really know the feeling. It's not trivial. I mean, it's absolutely not simple.
Hmm.
Founder is the CEO the founder as well? It's
Yeah,
their
one
company.
of, but
Okay.
he's the main
He's
founder.
like the main one. Okay. Um, yeah, it's you have to, it's always you don't play the game, you play the person, you play the man, you play the woman. And understand, you know, uh, like depending on how close they are, understand uh who they are as a personality, like what actually makes them listen. Um, there's certain leaders which is not atypical. There's Most leaders want to just see the numbers. They're like, I want to know why is this better than that? And I want to see that in numbers. I don't care about the fluffy messaging, emotional stuff. I don't care.
Right,
Like, even though you know that it's it's actually why the numbers are doing what they're doing, you still have to show them the numbers. And uh, so it's that potentially showing in the same capacity, like case studies of other examples that are similar to this particular problem. Finally, asking just simply, why? Why again, going back to like why don't you I'm telling you why I do want to do it this way. Why don't you want to do it this way? Like what is it specifically really deeply that's making you change your mind or want to go in this other direction? Um, you know, and then you can lean into the fact that it was this one thing and now you want to change gears. You want to shift gears and I want to understand why because it's a pretty big shift. Um, and I think, I can't give like, there's no straight answer. You have to understand
right, right. Hmm.
where the guy is coming from to be able to have the conversation, to start talking about, how that'll impact your current market, how that'll impact your current audience, how that'll impact the organization as a place that people want to work. How will this change how the company is seen and perceived in the eyes of everyone? How will this impact families that of the people who work here? Like I start going in that direction and I just want to like just understand, you know, what is your motivation behind this? As an individual, what is it that made you want to go, I need to switch this? And can you explain that simply in a simple way? Because the other thing that two things will happen. Either your friend will be like, "Oh, I understand now and I can get behind it and my motivation is back." Or he'll be like, "Okay, I understand and I can't be a part of this." And
Right.
then he'll take his
Mm.
time. He'll either be like, "I need to like find something else before so I can get out of here safely," or he'll just leave. Otherwise, uh the former alternative is what you're hoping for. You're hoping that
Of
there's
course.
an
Hmm.
understanding and you go, oh, okay, now I get it. That's what you needed to tell me. Now I can get behind it and I can rally everyone else behind it.
Hmm.
Um, but until I understand why, then none of this makes sense to me. And it feels like, the wrong move. So that's what I would do. I would just try to really get at the core of what the purpose of all of the shift is. And it can't be money. It can't just be like because we're losing money in this direction or losing money in that direction, because a vision is not ever something that's easily attainable. It always takes
Right,
time.
right. Yeah, that's what he basically what I told him. I was like, look, just ask him what his goal is. Like what is the CEO's goal with the company? Just, I don't know, make an exit a couple of years from now. I'm like, you've been working together for a while and you guys trust each other. So you should know what his like mid term play is. Like, and
Yeah,
that should give you some transparency too. Because I think what's creating anxiety for him is that he's like, I don't know what his end game is. I'm like, well, you should ask him,
yeah,
because then
yeah,
you can align your end game with that. Because basically, so they had this gosh, I cannot remember what the whole product is about because I'm not really following the company, but I think they had some sort of a like a quality mission, like da 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 da, and now it's basically switching to just making rich people richer. And I'm like, okay, I get it why you
yeah,
don't want to,
yeah.
like you do not see how this could work. And so I told him, and this was just end of last week, so I haven't spoken with him yet. So I'll give him, I'll relate this to him because I think that also makes a lot of sense. But truly tough station because he's like nearing his 40s. He's like, I just really wanted this to be my last job before I just go on and do something on my own. I was like, oh man, I'm sorry, like this is tough, like a pivot
Yeah.
that you did not expect.
Yeah, that hurts. Yeah, I get it. I actually have a friend who was in a similar situation a few years ago. He also was under the impression that his company was preparing to sell and be acquired by
Mhm.
another one. And, no, they weren't, as always, there was just the Chinese wall and nobody knows what's going on. Like leadership
Right.
only knows and no one else knows. And there are whispers and everyone's like, are we going to
Oh, I
lose our
hate that.
jobs? Are we not going to lose our jobs? I don't know what's
Mhm.
going to happen. And then people start freaking out and they start looking for work. And that's when just everything starts breaking.
Right, right.
And now guess what? Nothing happened yet. This was this was like 3 years ago, and they were talking about doing it in 18 months, and now it's 3 years later, and nothing's happened yet. And and I was even telling him, I'm like, figure out what's going on, and if not, you need to start covering your bases because
Right,
if so you can also move to a better, so you can have a smooth transition elsewhere.
right.
So it's the same thing with your friend. If even if it's for the exit, the same questions come up. Like, how do you want to exit? How do you want to be known when you exit? How
Exactly.
do you want your people to be treated when you exit? Like, what happens to them? Is this an acquisition? Is it a merger? Is it a are you just selling the product and not the people? Like, what moves when you exit, and how does that fit into what we're doing in the next couple of years? These questions it's all, again, it's like, just tell me
Difficult
why
questions, but good
and what,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, like what is what does it look like in his head?
Speaking of good questions, we're getting to my favorite part, which I call homework. We have discussed a lot of great things during the episode. And what I try to do at the end is always kind of like give it back to the guest to suggest some sort of a small task for the listeners that they can execute on quickly. Like it cannot be something like, oh, I don't know, like go draw on your 10-year plan for your life, because obviously that's not going to happen. But it could be something that we have discussed during the episode, could be something completely unrelated. But what would you like the listeners to do once they stop listening to this episode?
Yeah, I love that question. Honestly, I will bring it back to I know a lot of people consistently struggle with what's my why. Why I don't know why I do what I do. Even if you're starting your own business, you want to create your value proposition and like really explain to people the story behind why you're doing what you're doing. A quick way to really get at that, I mean, in a day, it can take you minutes, maybe an hour tops, but it'll come to you within a day, is just, um, it's a little unorthodox, but get yourself angry. Think about what makes you angry. It's a different way of looking at this. We always come at it from like, what are the problems you're trying to solve? People ask you, what is the problem you're trying to solve? But you don't know what that is until something has already pissed you off, because that
Right.
problem is never something that makes you happy. It's never something you're not happy about a problem. I mean, maybe you're like, I'm so glad I found this problem because now I can solve it. but but
But you're not happy about the problem.
but you want But that problem needs to be, it needs to make you angry enough so that you have enough passion that'll drive you for a long time to figure out how to solve it and to help others solve it. So, it can be anything. Like, I'll give you my example. The reason that I want to change the way that we relate to the workplace, that's my whole thing, is to change how the world relates to the workplace. Is because in 2021 I applied to 460 jobs, and I got in like 6 months I got I think 20. I got one interview, first of all, after which the job was no longer even available. And then and I
Because
made
they
it to
feel
the
it
top,
internally, right?
apparently. Yeah. Yeah, probably. And then and I got like 26 responses from, clearly from bots. That's, like weeks and weeks later. And, so that meant I was left with 420 some odd jobs that I just never heard from. So I'm like,
Wow.
that enraged me. I mean, it made me so angry. And I felt like I was in a black hole with no mirrors. I was getting no feedback. I just felt totally insane. And then I realized this was happening to so many people, to so many talented people, to my own friends, to colleagues, and so many people I don't know, like millions of people. And so that really pissed me off. And I was like, okay, there's something here that needs to be changed, that needs to be solved. And I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. That's that's how you can quickly figure out why you do what you do and what it is you truly want to do that's going to drive you for years. Because you can't scale something that's going to, kind of tick you off. It needs to be something that
Right.
just enrages you
Right.
so deeply that it's a change the world kind of a mission. And that you can figure out real quick. You don't have to do too much research for that. You just have to go deep inside yourself and pay attention to what's been upsetting you for a while, and then use that anger to drive your passion to do something really cool.
I love that. Like the backwards formula, I think it works so much better than trying to dig what is it that's so important
Yeah.
to me. Love that. Okay,
Just go
last
straight to the
question.
source.
Exactly. Last question. What is the one thing or one truth that you know today that you wish you could have told your younger self 5 or 10 years ago?
Oh, start small. Start small. Even if you think you
A
know
good one.
everything, and you've had, 15 years experience, and you have a master's degree, and you know that there's bigger processes and deeper ways and better ways of doing things. You're not special. You don't know, and you don't have a reputation yet. You're not big enough. No one will trust you. It's too expensive. Just start small. Just start very small, one offering for a very reasonable price, and grow from there. It's that's something that I would have done differently.
Mm. So very like reminds me of my own pain because I think my problem is I always see the big picture. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, I want to be, the god of the universe, whatever. But I'm like, but how do I get there? What's the first step?
yeah,
I'm like, just figure out the first step. Like, don't worry about the big picture because
yeah.
it will come. Whew, such good things. All right. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Oh, so you can find me on LinkedIn. My full name, just look me up, Nader Safinya. Uh, you can find me on Google. I'm very easy to find. My LinkedIn will come up. My website will come up. Blackribbit.com is my company website. You can find me there. And that's it. I'm very easy to find. You can Google me. My own podcast is also on my website, Frog Talk, where we talk about company culture and branding.
I love that. I love the name. Reminds me completely unrelated, but I have no idea why we call it this way. My best friend in DC, whenever we would like go hang out and have some adventurous time, we'll call it frog time. No idea why.
That is interesting. I would love to know why.
I think it was that emoji, on iPhone you have this
Uh-huh.
like frog head emoji, which kind of
Yeah,
like looks a little, kind of like it's having fun. So I think that was
that's
it.
so interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that's my podcast, Frog Talk.
So, guys, give Frog Talk a listen, please. And we'll tag all of your profiles and links under the episode. Nader, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I just feel like, talk to an old friend or something.
Me
It's
too, Olia. Same.
always a pleasure.
Yeah.
I would love to book you in for maybe part 2 sometime down the road, because I think there are so many other questions that I haven't asked that I'm like boiling up in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. That would be an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.